Hello everybody and welcome to my review of the film 47 Meters Down. This movie was directed by Johannes, and if you don't know the background behind this film, this movie was supposed to be a straight-to-DVD release, but there was a new production company and they decided to throw this into theaters, see how it does, and it ended up doing quite well actually. It ended up doing a lot better box office growth than its budget actually called for, and now this movie's slated for a sequel actually. So was it really worthy of being into a theater-wide release? In my opinion, no. So let's get straight into the review for this film. First of all, I want to tell you that this movie isn't all bad. I didn't like this movie personally, but there are aspects of this film that I think give credit to the director of this film, that he has kind of a creative, unique style, but the vision and execution just does not come together for this guy. And ultimately, this was basically a straight-to-DVD, kind of campy, not very well done film, kind of half-baked. So here's a couple of things that I did like in this film. If you don't know the story, I'll tell you a little bit about that right now. It's basically these two girls go on vacation. They do find out about this kind of sketchy shark immersion thing where you go into the cage and then go underwater and then you're having a shark encounter, but they can't can't hit you because you're in the cage. So basically they go and do this kind of shark immersion thing, but their cage falls down, 47 meters down, into the deep ocean blue. And now they have to deal with sharks and have to deal also with how much oxygen supply they have, because their oxygen supply will begin to diminish as longer they stay down on the ocean floor. So one thing I really enjoyed about this film, and I think it was unique from different films in this genre, is that this movie takes place completely, I bet 90% of this film actually, is completely submerged underwater. So you have no time to breathe, literally. I mean, you are in the movie on land in the movie only for the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes. After that, this movie goes straight underwater. And what's really interesting about keeping a film in an underwater setting is that it creates a very unsettling tension that is rare to see in other films of this genre. Because even in The Shallows, another 2016 Sharks movie starring Blake Lively, which I do think is a better film, I think that the underwater sequences in that film, although they were also very riveting, were not quite as unsettling. There's just something about us as human viewers watching two humans submerged completely in water that gives a very unsettling kind of vibe, because it's not our place. It's, underwater we swim and we dive and all that stuff, but being underwater for so long, puts that pressure on us, on our human bodies. So watching this film be completely underwater definitely increases, notches up that tension for us as viewers. That said, this film is quite weak in most other facets, especially in the writing of this film. The dialogue and characters are so bad in this movie. I mean, I don't necessarily need a lot of character development for these characters. Instead, the director and writers decide, we need to put some character development for whatever reason. This is one of those films where you can have a very simple thriller kind of thing going. Instead, they try and put this really horrible, emotional, sentimental, melodramatic, sappy, crappy backstory to these characters that was just plain annoying and weird to see in the film when you're submerged 47 meters down and underwater and they start talking to each other like they're sitting in their living room with this absolutely horrible dialogue. It is such horrible writing for the dialogue, for the characters. Also, the acting in this film is really bad, really campy. I mean, these are not polished actresses that are working in this film. They have been seen in other TV shows, but they just couldn't match the necessary, I think, acting notes for this role. And most of that is because of the campy dialogue and campy writing. So if the movie hadn't tried to put in that kind of weird, sentimental backstory, I feel like it would have really elevated the script. Additionally, they try and create tension through what the dialogue is, when in reality, films like this should rely on actions rather than dialogue. Instead, the writers of this film decide that the tension can be ramped up by how much the actors are squawking away at each other, which gets really annoying after one point, because you don't necessarily need to announce right before what you're going to do exactly what you're going to do. I mean, there are scenes where they're like, okay, we're going to do this, A, B, and C, and then she does A, B, and C in the movie. So I'd rather that she just do A, B, and C without spending 15 hours explaining what she's going to do before she's going to do that thing. So in that kind of way, the script was also very lazily written and constantly felt like the movie had to make stuff up for them to fill the runtime and for their actors to do. When in reality, with such a controlled, intense setting, you shouldn't have that much of an issue pushing out a 90-minute film. And instead, they try all these different kind of gimmicks to put something in the runtime to fill the space that they have. I think that they could have done things differently with this plot. I think it's an interesting plot, and they just kept having them say all this campy dialogue and doing all this absolute, just horribly written dialogue over and over that we kind of lose track of the action and the intensity and the kind of visceralness of the immediate situation. And it kind of loses you after a while, and you kind of get bored of just hearing them plan out what they're going to do. So the performances were not very believable, and that the writing was very, very lazily done, in my opinion. You know what? I think the difference between this film and The Shallows, because I think that's a comparison that needs to be made, is that The Shallows focused on the action that Blake Lively was taking. She would, think through things, and she would hear her kind of thought process, and she'd come to conclusions. She'd have to weigh in her risks. But in this film, it kind of just feels like almost a casual thing these girls are going through, and whenever there is some sort of tension or danger, they have to announce what they're going to do before they do it, instead of them reacting immediately. And so that tension just is gone then. But again, what I liked about this film was that unique, unsettling nature of the whole film being underwater, and actually that aspect of the film is a very important aspect of the film, which I like. Because when we're underwater, it's so much more pressure, and it's a whole different world down there. And I think this film captured that perfectly. Additionally, as I said, there are some gimmicky moments in this film, but they are kind of creative in what they do with those gimmicks. No spoilers, but there is something towards the end of this film which I thought was unique, but also unnecessary to the film. But that said, I think it shows that the director of this film has some unique ideas, just couldn't put it together and tie it up with a nice bow of neat writing. I think this movie could have been much better. I think the writing is bad in this film. I think the script is bad in this film. But that said, there's always something about these films, these very situational films, that grabs your attention. And I won't say that I wasn't completely entertained. I was entertained a little bit, but I just feel like the situation that they were in did not feel believable enough to me. It felt like they kept on having to make stuff up in the writing, or have to, tinker around with their backstories, when in reality, I want to see a very lean, mean, 90-minute thriller where they're just put into the situation and they're trying to make their way out. And there were a lot of times in which they were just waiting for help, and I think that's where the script also suffers, is that they don't try and get out of the situation by themselves. I think that would have made for a more engaging, more visceral film. So overall, I'm going to give this movie a C. I really don't think this is a great shark movie. Honestly, we've had such a lack of shark movies that any shark movie that comes up, we take in. But I don't know why they're making a sequel to this. I guess they got enough people to see 47 meters down that now they can make 48 meters down. That said, I'm looking still to see good shark movies. I really like The Shallows, as I've said. But this movie was just lazy and belonged in a straight-to-DVD section. That said, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to get more videos out to you soon. I've watched a lot of movies, and I have a lot more movies coming out to you guys very soon. Hope you guys are having a great Oscar season, and let's get into more movies very soon.